Hello everyone, Storm 11 here. Today we'll be talking about a major storm system that is expected to roll through the Midwest and into the Ohio Valley around Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. We're going to get started with the watch warning advisory display across the country here. For the most part, it's quiet, but down at our neighbors down in eastern Tennessee, that is a red flag warning that is out for eastern Tennessee and it stretches down into central Georgia. That's where conditions could favor wildfires, brush fires, where the ground is pretty dry, the humidity is low, and it's windy. So conditions favor for some brush fires or maybe even some wildfires down in eastern Tennessee. And red flag warnings is automatic fire ban. You can't burn outside or anything. Meanwhile, up here in Kentucky, it's quiet. Let's go get straight to the storm prediction and outlook here. So this is for tonight. No thunderstorms in the forecast across the country. Tomorrow, maybe a chance for storms down in Arizona. Some storm chances out west for day 3, which is Sunday. Day 4, predictably too low, but as we get into day 5, which is Tuesday, we got a 30% enhanced risk area that stretches from northern Louisiana through a decent chunk of Mississippi, the eastern half of Arkansas, western Tennessee, southeastern Missouri, and even far southwestern Kentucky, which would include places like Murray, Mayfield, and Fulton. That does not include Paducah, but it's pretty close. That 15% slight risk includes all of western Kentucky, including most of the I-65 corridor. The only exception would be Louisville. And I suspect we'll see some more changes with this as we get closer here. But definitely a major change to the outlook compared to yesterday. If you follow me on X, you've probably seen the outlook from yesterday versus today. So this is quite a change here, and we're going to explain why with that change here in a minute. But here's the day 6 outlook. This is for Wednesday. Got a 50% slight risk from the Mid-Atlantic region down through the Carolinas, down into Georgia. So we're going to get started with the GFS, the American model out there. And you can see here, the weekend in Kentucky is pretty quiet. We do trend colder as the weekend goes on. 40s tomorrow, and then kind of struggling to get out of the 30s for Sunday here. Sunday's going to be a cold day, and I cannot rule out some lows in the teens Sunday morning, especially in those colder valleys. Monday we start to get on to a warmer trend, and then we start to focus on out to our west. And you can see here by Monday afternoon we got a 988 millbar low in southeastern Colorado, and that's going to move eastward out of the Rockies. And you can see 986 millbar low along the Nebraska-Kansas state border. That's a pretty strong low. Really a low pressure system below 1,000 millibars is considered a strong low pressure system. Below 990, that's a pretty strong storm out there. But as we get into Tuesday afternoon, severe weather absolutely erupts in Arkansas down into Louisiana. It can start as early as Tuesday morning, back towards, southeastern Oklahoma into eastern Texas here. But really the peak of the intensity of storms here looks to be Tuesday afternoon into the evening here. And that will be really across most of Arkansas, northern half of Mississippi into western Tennessee, and maybe even parts of western Kentucky. And you can see how strong this low here gets, especially as we get to Tuesday evening. I mean, a 976 millbar low in southeastern Iowa. That is a powerhouse of a low, and that would create a lot of wind. This would be quite a wind maker out there, especially off to our northwest. And as we get into Wednesday morning into the afternoon, that same line of storms that kind of come through Kentucky is more confined into the Mid-Atlantic, down into the Carolinas, all the way down towards the Gulf Coast in the Panhandle of Florida. And really by Wednesday morning here, we just have this very strong low off to our north. It moves up into the Great Lakes. There is an outside chance we may see some wintry weather Thursday morning. A tiny bit of snow, probably not going to be enough for any snowfall accumulations or anything like that. So overall, this system here is going to bring some problems. There's a risk for strong severe storms, strong winds outside of those storms, and also maybe a tiny bit of wintry weather for Thursday. And let's talk about deeper with this system here. So we're going to look mainly on the wind dynamics with this system here. There's more skill in the wind dynamics at this range than thermodynamics. Thermodynamics, I'm not going to talk much about in this video because it's pretty unreliable at this range. More times than not, models underplay the moisture return and the instability. I've seen that more times than not. And wouldn't surprise me if that happens again this time around. So I'm not going to bother looking to the thermodynamics. Right now, I think it's too early. What's not too early is talk about the wind dynamics. How the wind dynamics shapes up the severe weather setup. So this is the 500 millibar winds. This is where you can tell the shape of your troughs. So let me pull up a different color pen here. We'll do it in black here. So here's your trough right here. This is your trough right here. Okay, those arrows there. And you can see here at this point in time, this is Tuesday afternoon. Let me back up just a little bit here because it's important to see the whole evolution of this trough here. So let's kind of start over a little bit here. So this is what the trough looks like. This is a neutrally tilt trough. So of how the trough set up, it's kind of like north and south. It's vertical. It's a vertical looking trough, and vertical looking troughs are neutrally tilt troughs, you know, do favor severe weather, though it's not the most favorable phase of a trough for severe weather historically. But look what starts to happen here. As that system rapidly strengthens here, you're going to see this trough here changes tilt. So as we get deeper into Tuesday afternoon, you see here how the trough becomes more negatively tilt. As that happens, that's when the severe weather really ramps up. And really out ahead of this, divergence zone, you see how the winds here spread out, out ahead of the trough here, right in between where you get the jet streak that goes up here and another piece here, or a weaker piece that goes out this way. You get a ton of divergence that occurs in between those two, which so happens to be in Arkansas, in northern Louisiana. So divergence, based off the look of this trough here, is going to be very strong, which means there's going to be a ton of lift out there for those storms. And these storms can build quite high up into the atmosphere. They really can do that. And you can see here as you get into Tuesday evening here how the winds really start to strengthen over Arkansas here. And that's a jet streak that is showing up right there. And really out ahead of that jet streak here is where you're going to see some of the bigger storms out of the system here. And as you get into, deeper into Tuesday evening here, that jet streak starts to move into western Kentucky, western Tennessee, and the northern Mississippi. And out ahead of that jet streak is where that line of storms are going to be. And initially, you're going to have supercells out there. Initially here, you're probably going to have supercells out there initially, and they can form as early as Tuesday morning. But it can quickly turn into a squall line and move very quickly to the northeast. And you're talking about storm motions that can be anywhere from 50 to 60 miles an hour. So these storms are not going to waste any time here. And then the trough doesn't become as impressive here. It kind of flattens out a little bit. And while that trough there's flattening out, that's when the storms start to calm down here. So the storms will start to weaken Tuesday night and into early Wednesday morning here. So really the peak intensity for these storms here is really going to be Tuesday afternoon to Tuesday evening here. Out there, and this kind of puts western Kentucky, the area of greatest potential within the state. Kentucky wise, western Kentucky right now has the greatest probability of seeing severe weather. Central and eastern Kentucky, it's more uncertain. It's a little bit more uncertain across central and eastern Kentucky at the moment here. There's still more questions than answers out there for central and eastern Kentucky here. Let's move on to the 300 millibar winds. So this is kind of pretty close to the jet stream. Now the jet stream is at 250 millibars. So you can see here we don't have access to it, at least on Pivotal Weather. But 300 millibar winds kind of gives you the better idea of what can happen here, or about as close as you can get with 250 millibar winds. So you start to see here there's a northern branch here and there's a southern branch here. When that happens there, right between here, right in this area here is where you get an area of greatest diffluence. And usually with diffluence, that means the lift is very strong. The air is forced to rise, especially along that 500 millibar jet stream. So this also helps the case for storms to build up higher up into the atmosphere. So these are going to be some big time storms out there because there's just so much lift out there. And it's not going to take much instability to get the storms going either. And that's another issue, is that if we end up getting a lot of instability with this setup here, that could lead to quite a significant severe weather event out there. And then we can look into the load of a jet, which is at 850 millibars. And let me show you guys something here. So this is for Tuesday morning here. Now, a favorable low of a jet for severe weather setups would be anywhere from 40 to 50 knots. That's a pretty solid low of a jet. That's all you really need for severe weather. But as that trough becomes negatively tilted, you start to see how the low of a jet really ramps up. So we go way beyond the 450 knots. We start to get into the 60 to even up as high as 80 knot low of a jet. That is a very strong load of a jet out there. And the peak of the load of a jet is going to be probably Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday evening. And you can see here how the low of a jet is very strong. I mean, a large area of 70 to 80 knot wind. So the low of a jet's going to be screaming out there. And there's even an outside chance here we may see some areas exceeding 80 knots. You can see it right there, 82 knots. Not too far away from Owensboro out there Tuesday evening. But as that trough there flattens out, the low of a jet starts to back off as well. So wherever the trough kind of flattens out a little bit is when everything starts to calm down a little bit. And that's just going into, Tuesday night out there. But regardless, though, the wind dynamics are extremely favorable for severe weather. One of the better looking wind dynamic setups I've seen in quite some time here for severe weather. So now, Kentucky wise, there's still a decent amount of uncertainty here, especially in central and eastern Kentucky. I think along and west of I-65 currently has the best chance right now. Could it get expanded eastward? It could. That's going to depend on the timing on the system. If it happens to come through here, a little bit earlier in the day, then that could push the severe weather risk into central Kentucky. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see about the timing here, which the timing won't be ironed out for a couple more days. So central and eastern Kentucky still got to keep an eye on this right now. Now, arguably the worst of the severe weather with this type of setup here is probably going to be in here. So eastern Arkansas, northeastern Louisiana, parts of western and northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, the Boot Hill, Missouri, and probably far southwestern Kentucky. So the area in black here, the black circle, I think that's where the worst of the severe weather is going to be. And there's going to be potential for strong long track tornadoes as well. It's also a very favorable environment for strong long track tornadoes as well, especially if you can get sustainable supercells out ahead of that squall line. Now that squall line will also have a tornado threat as well, and it can also could contain damaging winds as well. So, and those really are the two primary hazards. Hail could also be in play as well, especially if we can get supercells to kind of fire up out there. And here's another model here looking to the setup here. This is the 18Z European model. This is at 250 millibars here. So this is what we want here. This is at the Jetstream here. You can see this in better detail here. Tuesday afternoon here, where you got the southern piece here across southern Texas into Louisiana, and here's the northern branch up here. Right between those two branches there is where the greatest affluence is going to be, which would be in here. So that would be across most of Arkansas, southern Missouri, into eastern Oklahoma. Now, the difference between the Euro and the GFS is that the Euro is a little bit slower. GFS is faster with the progression of this trough here, which can make some differences here locally in Kentucky here. A later arrival can decrease severe weather potential across the state, but an earlier arrival can increase the severe weather risk here. But you can see here how where those two branches become separate really up until Tuesday night. And really by Tuesday night there, that's when the storms should be calmed down at that point. And probably by that point, it'd probably be across eastern Kentucky if they're still ongoing out there. We can also look into the 500 millibar winds, and you can see here those very strong winds there. So you can see at first it's neutrally tilt, but then when it becomes negatively tilt, like right here, that's when the severe weather really picks up into gear. But then when the trough kind of flattens out a little bit, that's when the severe weather begins to back off, especially with the intensity with the storms. As that trough there kind of flattens out a little bit more. And with a flatter trough, with the trough becoming more broad and a little bit flatter, that helps de-amplify the system out there. And we can also check the Lova jet as well. And you can see here, it's very easy to tell that the Lova jet's going to be very strong here. And there's no doubt about it that the Lova jet's going to be very strong. And usually with a very strong Lova jet, tends to lead to very high wind shear parameters out there. So that'd be another thing to watch here is the Lova jet. How strong could the Lova jet can be in this setup here? So one more thing about this system here. So outside the severe weather potential, there's also going to be potential for high winds. And I think there's going to be 2 rounds of potential for high winds. Both of them can be in wind advisory criteria, which if you don't know what wind advisory criteria is, that's basically 40, 50, 55 mile per hour winds. But 40 mile an hour winds is a minimum for wind advisory criteria winds. So if I kind of back this up here a little bit, this is the European model here. So for Tuesday evening here, where this model here is a little bit slower, it's got the strongest wind gusts in Arkansas, where it believes wind gusts could be pushing 60 miles an hour. Now, I will say this before I go even further. This is the maximum potential winds. The thing about the weather models is that they don't take into account the amount of dry air we have in our atmosphere. So drier air helps mix those winds to the upper levels, get down to the surface easier. The more dry air you got, the easier the winds can mix down to the surface. Okay, now if you have quite a bit of moisture, that's a pretty difficult task. Winds will have a harder time mixing down towards the surface, which means weaker winds at the surface. But it doesn't necessarily mean it won't be windy in that scenario. You're talking about a pretty tight pressure gradient there, which that by itself can help keep winds in wind advisory criteria here, even in the lower end scenario. But what's going to continue on with this here? So the models, they don't take into account with the amount of moisture we have in the atmosphere. So some days you'll see them be right, and other days you'll see them be wrong on the winds. But then again, this will show you the maximum potential here. And remember, there will be some moisture with this system here, which means some of these wind gusts here could be overdone. But anyway here, this is the European model. You can see here the first round of those stronger winds. And these winds here would be out ahead of that line of storms. And I think winds would be topping out 35 to 45 miles an hour. out ahead of that line of storms there. So just enough for wind advisory criteria. Now, just behind the storms, we get a little bit of a break. But as we get into Wednesday morning, here comes this next round of wind. Now, here's the thing with this round here of wind. There's going to be a dry slot that's going to try to come in here behind that line of storms. And within a dry slot is where we're likely to see the strongest winds out of this event here. So it's really the second round of winds I would really watch on the setup here, especially if the timing is favorable like the European model here. Usually late afternoon or late morning into the early mid-afternoon is usually a pretty ideal time frame during the day to get some of the stronger wind gusts going. So this is at noon on Wednesday here, and you can see here how the winds are really cranking out there. I mean, widespread 45 to 55 mile an hour wind gusts with some locally 60 mile an hour wind gusts. So this would be a high wind warning criteria type of event if this were to be correct. But then again, this is the maximum potential here. We're going to have some moisture here. However, if things line up just the right way, if we got more dry air mixing in than expected, then this could end up being a high wind warning criteria event. Now, there's still some time left here for that information to be kind of ironed out a little bit. And I think we'll have this ironed out probably by Monday. It's easier to forecast wind gradient events than severe weather. Wind gradient events is not that complicated as compared to severe weather. Severe weather, there's a lot of stuff to look into compared to, wind gradient events. But either way here, there's definitely going to be some high wind potential with this system here, especially for as strong as that low is going to be. Potentially going below 980 millibars. You can guarantee there's going to be some strong winds, and at a minimum, I think this will be a wind advisory event. But the maximum potential can be a high wind warning type of event. So we got to keep an eye on that as well, because those winds by itself can cause power outages, a little bit of damage out there. So it's going to be another thing worth watching as well. And of course, much colder air filters in behind it, and really Thursday morning, it's going to feel a little bit more like winter out there. We'll probably have some snowflakes flying around out there as well, depending on how much moisture we will have left. But we'll have more updates on this system here as we get closer. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys liked this video, hit that like button. If you like my channel, hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notifications so never miss an upload. If you guys got any questions, leave the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.